I think that people are just honestly too lazy and they're trying to cut corners today, as opposed to some of the tools and the tactics that we used back then before we got spoiled with automation.
Welcome to the Digital Agency Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Englander.
So today on the show, I'm very excited to welcome Jared Gibson, who is in a wonderful city of Chicago, Illinois, where everybody's kind of coming out of their holes, and it must be very nice right now. Jared, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. So I love to talk to people in this space because I think in that the space being LinkedIn and thought leadership and content creation right now, especially because I think a lot is changing and there's a lot of talk about what's happening in terms of organic and so on, which I'm sure we'll get into. But it's great to have you. And I love if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about your background and what you're up to at Outworks.
Yeah, for sure. So again, thanks for having me on. So Jared Gibson, I co-founded a company called Outworks. We are a marketing agency that works with founders and executives to help them build their personal brand through content, through high quality content, consistent high quality content. I guess consistent's the key word there as well. But it's mostly on LinkedIn. A lot of the content that we help create can be used cross-channel or cross-platform. But the premise is that we build a strategy around the CEO, the founder, and in a lot of other cases, like their team members, if they want to have other people on their team work with us, build a strategy around what we're actually going to talk about. And then we conduct 60-minute interviews each month with them, super casual podcast style interviews like this. And then we take that interview and we chop it up for short form content. So that could be 30 to 90 second video clips, graphics, designs, carousels, or just text-based posts. But the goal is, again, helping busy executives that know that are in the B2B space, that know that their buyers are on LinkedIn, help them make sure that they are consistently top of mind, building trust, showcasing personality on LinkedIn.
Cool. As David Byrne would say in the Talking Heads, how did you get here? How did you come to this offer and building Outworks?
Yeah. So Outworks. So I was previous to starting Outworks. My background's in sales. Most of my career, I've been a road warrior in sales for almost 10 years on the road, selling telecom services. Left that job. That actually brought me to Chicago from Northeast Ohio. And then did a few other things, but got together and is the VP of sales for a company called Snap Mobile. And that's where I met my two co-founders, Brandon and Kelly. Brandon, it was his company. And then Kelly was Brandon's UX UI lead. And I ended up jumping over to we had a private equity firm above us. I jumped over from Brandon's team to actually, which I was the VP of sales for, to the VP of marketing for a company called Empower HR. So different role, first soiree into marketing. But I approached it with a sales hat on, which is, I think, very unique. So I work very closely with the sales team, who were already a rock solid sales team. They just didn't have any air support from a marketing perspective. So build out the marketing engine there. We ended up getting acquired. And the acquisition was, I'm trying to think of a polite way to put it. It wasn't the best of acquisitions. And it kind of gave me an opportunity to take a step back and then be like, is this really what I want? To have to deal with this shit like throughout my career? Potentially it could happen again. And I had really surrounded myself with a bunch of EO community. If anybody's familiar with EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, it's a worldwide group of entrepreneurs. And they had rubbed off on me. You know, I've made a lot of friends within that group, and I decided, like, I want to start my own thing. So I went back to Brandon and Kelly and I said, hey, let's do something here. Let's start something together. And Snap Mobile had been since acquired, so it made sense for all of us to do this. And we're all kind of obsessed with the growth marketing play. So we got together and started Outworks, and now we're on iteration, I think, 6 of what Outworks originally started as, which is kind of expected. You follow the market, you listen to what your clients say, and you go from one version to the next, and then you just keep iterating throughout.
Yeah, I love that. And I love people that are open about those iterations and build in public and so on. Can you talk about those a little bit? Like, you don't have to go through each and every one, but just kind of like, what was the progression of those iterations?
Yeah. So I had built teams in the past on the predictive revenue model, right? you set up the automations, you set up the messaging, and back then it worked. So we knew that we were going to do something, but we weren't sure what it was going to be. So we're like, well, let's just start doing this for small business owners, right? That want to get in touch with people, get meetings. So we set that up. And the way that we wanted to run it is that it's got to be short, sweet, to the point. It's not asking for a meeting in the outreach. It's, hey, Dan, we work, or Dan, I'm hosting a dinner at Chicago Cut Steakhouse in 2 weeks. We're inviting other agency owners. We're going to cap it at 12. We want to keep it an intimate setting. Let me know if there's any interest, and I can send you over details. That type of messaging, as opposed to like 3 paragraphs of a pitch, that got great responses for the clients that let us do it. The problem is that you got people that just wanted to cut the curve and immediately get the meetings like they'd seen everybody else do in the past, and that just doesn't work anymore. So we started to get sick and tired of that, to be honest with you. And we jumped over to LinkedIn, and we started to do some of the automations on LinkedIn, and we were connecting people. We were building their networks. We were actually getting people meetings, but they were not creating any content at all. It's like you're inviting somebody into your house, and they walk in and there's no furniture. There's nothing there that can educate them. Your profile sucks. You have no content. You're not active. So we started to get clients continuously say to us, like, hey, can you just help us out with content? Can you help us out with content? And eventually we're like, listen, there's something here. So that's what we ended up cutting out, the cold outreach stuff, because we hated doing it. It wasn't working. We were attracting a lot of not ideal clients. And we started the content piece, and it's taken off for us. The system that we use, the tools that we have in place, it's awesome, and we love doing it.
Yeah, I love hearing that story because it's very similar to ours, and kind of like, I think that I sometimes come across these cold outreach refugees, right? Where we've sort of like learned from doing it that the old model just doesn't work that well because of just the amount of skepticism and noise and so on. For us, like the path we've gone down is more towards commonalities, referrals, relationship selling, and then also, yeah, the content, the event-based stuff and so on, but working kind of more on the outreach side. But I'd love to dig into the why behind that a little bit more. Like, what do you think changed? Like, why did we have to go in a different direction? Why did the predictable revenue model break?
I mean, because anybody with $30 and a computer could do what we were doing, we thought we were really good at 10 years ago. Right. And the technology and the software has just gotten so much better. It's gotten so much cheaper. Like back then it was expensive for some of those services that you used to use. And now it's like you pay $30 a month or whatever. You can set all the automations up. You can pull the lists on your own. Like Apollo is very affordable today. Zoom Info was not very affordable back then, right? Apollo, I don't know what Zoom Info's pricing is now, but Apollo, I don't know, what is it, like $20 maybe around that a month? And then plus you can go to a tool like Lemlist, or you can go to outreach.io and you can pay $20 a month for that and set them all up, run the process, and anybody can do it. So I think that that's what it is that people just have more access today to that than they did back then. And the people that were on board early back then were crushed with it. Like we did great with it. That model worked. But then you get the people that were just behind. They were like, oh, they were doing this like 8 years ago, like, or we built our program on this 8 years ago. It should work today. And then they just continue to try to fit a square peg into a round hole, and it's just not there.
Yeah, I don't think that's incorrect. I guess like what I've seen is a slightly different angle on it, where the access, I think actually doing cold outreach is harder than it was, because I remember getting a Growbots account or even an Apollo, and you'd be like off to the races and
Yep.
an hour. And like, I remember getting like, meetings easily from it on the first try, where now it's this whole deliverability infrastructure and data infrastructure, all the stuff you have to set up. I think that in some ways access has gotten easier, then it kind of got harder again. But I think the bigger thing that I've seen anyway is that the market in general has just gotten more inundated from all not just cold, but from all angles, like in terms of noise and just competition for attention and for services, the workforce getting globalized, and then AI, which we have to talk about every single episode as an obligation. So
let me ask you this. Let me ask you a quick question though.
Yeah.
That as a follow-up to that. Do you think that, and I'm going to put this in a nice way, do you think that people have also just gotten lazy? Because I think what's old is new again.
Yeah.
Cold calling can work. Nobody leaves me a voicemail. If somebody left me a voicemail on my phone as a business owner, I'm listening to that voicemail. I don't even need to listen to it. I can read it. And you can use tactics that way. Mail me something, right? If you really want to sell, if I'm one of your key accounts, which I shouldn't be because I am a very small business, but there's other ways of like things that worked back then that could, I think work today. But I think that people are just honestly too lazy and they're trying to cut corners today, as opposed to some of the tools and the tactics that we used back then before we got spoiled with automation.
It's a great question. I don't think that that's wrong, but I wouldn't phrase it as laziness.
Yeah, I tried to think of something else to say.
No. It's not that it's like pejorative or offensive. It's more that I think people are just more exhausted, right? And so they are lazier, but they're lazier because they're more tired, and they're more tired from all the stuff that they have to be now, right? It used to be like you could be in a back end agency and you have, a certain amount of repeat business from organic referrals, and you had your little protected group of clients for years on end, and nobody would churn very often. Like more and more, like, those days are over. So the agency that used to be like that now has to go out and market and do another 5 things they didn't have to do. So yes, because of that, the outcome is laziness, but cause is not necessarily lazy.
Yes, fair enough.
That's what I'm seeing anyway. So no, it's a great question. So I think that's actually an interesting segue to the next change, because we saw, what I think you, me, and a lot of smart people I talk to have seen as like the death of this predictable revenue model, where it's like, hey, seeds, nets, and spears, we're going to go out and blast out some emails, get some meetings, close some deals. Everything fits into this nice, beautiful little pipeline, and there's no chaos in the system at all. To where we're at now, where there needs to be a lot more trust, a lot more nurturing content, and so on. There is chatter. There's a lot of FUD right now about AI and about like the level of noise. There's people saying, hey, I used to post organic content every day and reach my market. Now that's not happening. There's a lot of talk of like, it's just going to pay to play. And when I'm thinking on first principles, some of that FUD kind of makes sense, because if everybody has this like rocket launcher of content with AI, there has to be some sort of costly signal that tells people, hey, this can actually go out. And I'm wondering if it all goes to pay to play. So let me stop blathering. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now LinkedIn's definitely pushing, and I'm going to talk about LinkedIn mostly because that's what I know. I think LinkedIn is definitely pushing the pay to play a little bit more. You see them advertising on like all over the place for for people, for their services, the thought leadership posts and advertising on the platform. So they're spending money on it. I think where a lot of people got the dopamine hit pretty seriously over the past, right? Especially with the new video feed that LinkedIn introduced last year, where LinkedIn basically opened it up to say, if you're posting videos in this format, then you're going to get a ton of impressions, which you did. We were doing that and we got a ton. And then overnight, one night, they said, okay, guess what? This is still our platform. And they shut it down. Not shut it down, but they basically took it from like you were getting 4,000 or 5,000 impressions on a post. Now you're getting 300, 400 impressions on a post. And that pissed a lot of people off. So it's unfortunate because we can't control the algorithms because there's multiple in play at the same time. Yeah. We can't control them. And you can try to do different tactics to try to beat them or stay on top of it, but they're constantly changing. And what I'm seeing is kind of LinkedIn going toward more of the Facebook model, what Facebook, kind of the demise of what Facebook ended up being, which is the pay to play. And then people just having to just throw shit at the wall and hope that something sticks. The best content right now that gets the most impressions is stuff that has nothing to do with my business. Nothing. Like I'll post something I posted about this the other day. It was like an ass crack of Harry from Dumb and Dumber. And then a post, I got like 100,000 impressions on it. And then the next day or the day before, I posted a really good carousel around sales or something like that. And it got like 400 impressions. And it's just like, how, like you have to do it. Like it's where your buyers are. People, your decision makers are going to LinkedIn and they are browsing. But you just have to change the mindset of like any one of those impressions, whether it's 10,000 or whether it's 300, any one of those impressions could be your next client or could be your next referral partner that brings you a client. And I think that if you switch the mindset to that and just know that it's still important to stay consistent, top of mind, then good things will come.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think a lot of it comes down to like, are you like in what aspect of the content are you creating for robots? What aspect are you creating for humans? We haven't done this experiment yet with LinkedIn, but we do put our episodes on YouTube and so on. And the AI is, we've been using it in custom GPTs to build the descriptions, the titles, the thumbnail suggestions. And what we sort of realized was like we started seeing a dip in viewership, and our best hypothesis that's sort of starting to pan out is that like the titles got too repetitive, right? So like it just sort of it allowed Google/YouTube to pigeonhole us more, but also they just looked less interesting. So I think that it's the classic, you have to go where the puck is going to be, not where the puck is right now. And a lot of that comes to like thinking of the next pattern interrupt. Like marketing right now doesn't look like it did 5 years ago when everything was like very much in your face clickbait. There's sort of like a subtlety to it that I see evolving with like the best YouTube people or the best LinkedIn people and so on. So let me pause there. Any thoughts or questions on that?
No, I mean, I agree with you because, I mean, I guess we could use AI as an example. Like all the gurus, anybody will tell like, oh yeah, like people that talk about AI and they have, 60, 70, 80,000 followers and they get a ton of impressions and a ton of engagement, all that stuff. Like those people are in a different world than most of us are, right? So when you get people now like us that have maybe 2,000, 3,000 connections talking about AI, it's going to flop 9 times out of 10 because people are overhearing about AI. It's like, oh, another post about AI. Sweet. Can't wait to learn something new. Right. So I think, like you said, it's like, what's next? Like, what's the next thing that people are going to want to hear about or, because I'm sure people that were talking about AI last year, 2 years ago, probably did pretty well. But now it's just like becoming a little bit more stale. You just have to figure out a new way to cut through the noise and get people to actually care enough to stop on your post and engage or read it.
Yeah, and I think at the beginning you kind of hinted at something that I think is not talked about enough, maybe in the agency space and then also in the bootstrapped entrepreneur space, which is TAM, like the size of your market. We talk a lot about verticalization, we talk a lot about specialization, we talk a lot about niching, but I think what I've seen is that like the tactics vary so much based on how many people are out there that you're trying to reach. Can you talk about that a little bit and how TAM affects the strategies you're adopting for clients and so on?
Yeah. So we're very transparent up front. Like, hey, if you're going after sales or marketing people, you're going to do well. Like because they're all over LinkedIn, and anybody that you see that gets thousands and thousands of impressions or tons of engagement are typically selling to sales and marketing people. And we tell them up front, like you're selling to CTOs of Series A founded SaaS companies in the healthcare space, right? So your total addressable market's not huge. The goal is to keep you consistent because it may not be your buyer, like your economic buyer that's seeing the content, but it may be somebody on their team, or it may be a partner of theirs that sees it. So we can't think about just directly going to the economic buyer with all the content because the dark funnel is real. Like somebody else, maybe the executive assistant to the economic buyer, is following you on LinkedIn and continuously seeing your content, right? And you're only getting 200 impressions on your posts, but you've got one person that continuously sees it. And it may not be your economic buyer, but she's having conversations in the back end through Slack or however with that economic buyer, telling them about you. Like that's why it's so important to understand, like when you start doing this, that who your market is. And I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think we talk about it enough. We try to bring it up at the beginning, but at the same time, we're in sales mode. So we have to be like, yeah, no, this is going to be great. This is what, like, we're going to create this content. And we never promise impressions. We never promise engagement because it does have to do with who you're selling to.
Yeah, and it's something I'm thinking about a lot more than I used to as well, because we didn't talk about it enough either. And if you go to like the funded Silicon Valley startup world, love them or hate them, there's smart people there. And one of the first things that they're focusing on for first principles is the classic like TAM times ARPU, which is what is an annualized revenue per user or per customer, whatever you want to frame it. And they're like, and so, these people that want to be the billionaires and want to get funding, they're like, if we don't hit that 100 million with that simple equation, then this is not an area worth focusing on. So that's not everyone. I'm not saying everybody should build $100 million company, but it is worth considering. And I think that the tactics just vary so much. Like there's so much talk in the sales marketing world and everyone with these playbooks. And then you look at the businesses they built and their TAM is massive, like growth stage e-commerce businesses versus healthcare, institutions or something like that. And I think that when we're working with agencies and we're actually like drilling into the data and helping them build their lists and that sort of thing, it can be kind of humbling, because I think that either consciously or unconsciously, there's this thought of like, oh, we have these 3 verticals and our market is massive and there's all these things we can do to reach them. And it's like, you actually start looking at the companies and the people and you're like, this is like, 1,000 companies maybe, and 3 people at each one of those companies. Like this is, if you do the big TAM approach, you're going to blast through these people in 5 minutes and that's it. I mean, it's not it, but so.
No, that's one of the struggles that we had when we were doing the, when I talked earlier about how we started to do the outreach, the cold outreach, is that we were getting people that did not have a huge addressable market that we could go after. And it's like, so there's like literally, like you said, 1,000 people. And like, how long is this relationship going to last if we just blast it out to 1,000 people right off the bat? So that is very true. But so I'm going to jump LinkedIn back into it.
Yeah.
You get people that, like, I have people that on prospect calls with me, I want to do what Adam Robinson's doing. And I'm like, who's Adam Robinson selling to? How long's Adam Robinson been doing it? Like, they see all the glitz and the glamour of, hey, we went from 2 million to 4 million last week. Crazy jump, like all this stuff. And it's like, that's not who you are. You need to stay in your lane, right? And John, John Sarakis, John said, we were talking about this one time, and John said, like, I asked John, like, what do you say to people that like are mad about impressions that just started and they want something right off the bat? John's like, ask them what they've done to deserve it, or what gives you that, like, damn it, I knew I was going to butcher this, but he said something just about like, you haven't earned this yet, basically, is what it is. Like, you need to put in the time that everybody else is to get to where they want to be. Sure, maybe at some point down the road you can become Adam Robinson of your industry, but from a scale perspective on what he's doing, it's likely not going to happen on the social media landscape.
Well, it's funny because we had Adam on the show, a few months ago, and he shares, everything in public. Like, we have these ups, we have these downs and everything. And he called this out on himself before I could call it out on him. But he's basically like, yeah, but it helps having an 8-figure software business, where everything's like overall doing well. And the dips, I mean, he didn't say this, but this is my commentary on it. Like, the dips in the company aren't really going to affect a software product that's a little bit more self-contained, versus if you're like an agency owner and you just lost like your 3 best clients. I don't know that going out there public with that information is going to help you.
Yeah.
So there's, and I think Adam would agree. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I literally had to put a slide in we have a short deck that we put together. We had to build out a slide in the deck because I had 2 people back-to-back calls that told me they wanted to do what Adam Robinson's doing, literally in the same day. I'm like, I got to put something in here that walks people through, like, this is where you are. This is where some people are. This is where he is. And it's like way, way up here. So it's just to kind of bring people back to earth and understand that, like, there's no magic, like, cheat the code button here. Like, it's going to take time to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So can you talk about how are you helping, a busy executive, like, it's kind of similar on an audience that we're focusing on, fit this into their lives and get the work done and make it happen?
Yeah. So I'll try not to spend too much time on this answer because I could go down a rabbit hole here, but
fine.
we tell people early on when we start doing this, some people that we work with and some execs have already been actively posting content on LinkedIn or even other platforms, and they come to us because they just want to they need some time back in their day, or they want to up their content game, like, or they're not doing video and they want to bring in video into it. Some of them come to us and they say, like, they haven't posted a ton, maybe once over the last 6 months or so, and we literally have to kind of talk them into the idea of, like, this is going to be a lifestyle for you. Like, you have to understand that, like, and I tell everybody this, it sounds corny as hell to say, but this becomes a lifestyle. You're going to be out and about with your kids on the weekend or at the grocery store or whatever, and you're going to think of it as something that you should post about. And I'm like, you need to write it down. I have in my notes app, I have everything, like so many ideas written down. You need to write it down because you're going to forget it. Or we give them a dumping ground that they can send ideas to us and we can bring it up on the next content interview. So it does become a lifestyle of like, I got a bunch of ideas. We love it when we see clients that are just sending us a ton of ideas and then that show up on the call and they're ready to go and they're like jacked about having the conversation. Those are our best clients. The clients that I would say are not our best clients are the ones that don't look at the questions that we send over to them ahead of time, that just show up and say, you know, hey, didn't have a chance to look at the questions. What are we talking about today? And they just don't have that mindset of like, the best content creators are the ones that are always thinking about content, right? They're not going to ChatGPT and just typing something in and popping something out. They've already got the ideas flowing in their head on what they want to talk about. So I guess the shortened version is it has to become a lifestyle for you really to see success doing it. Because if you're just kind of going through the motions, it's not going to be fun for you. You won't enjoy the process.
Right. And I also think there's an element of you have to treat it like going to the gym or anything else where the reward is doing it itself and not just some sort of outcome.
Yes. The gym analogy is perfect. Like I was talking to somebody yesterday and it's like, you go to the gym the first time you go into the gym, it's packed and there's a ton of people there. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You walk in and you go up to a machine and you start doing stuff. You just think like everybody's looking at me. Everybody's judging me. Everybody's making fun of me right now. And you kind of go through the motions in the gym and you're like, all right, that was good for the day. Like I'm done. You literally think everybody's watching you walk out the door. You leave, you get in your car. They see what kind of car I drive. That's so embarrassing. That's where people quit. And now I'm not talking about the gym now, the gym and with content creation. They post a few times and that's the mindset that they have. Like everybody's paying attention to me. Everybody's judging me, right? Yeah. Go back to the gym day 2 and it's a lot easier than it was day 1. Go back day 3 and it just becomes easier. And once you start doing it and getting through that process, then the lifestyle shift starts to kick in.
Yeah. And I do think like it's very obvious when somebody's put out something for the sake of creating that thing itself versus for some other outcome. And we've all seen those stilted podcast interviews that are overly scripted or there's just something else going on, right? And it's like, it's very obvious. Hopefully this is not one of them because I'm usually have fun doing these conversations. So that's the goal with it anyway. Can you talk a little bit about clarity, right? Because what we found is that a lot of times when we're building these outreach campaigns for clients, when there isn't a lot of clarity on who's a good client for them and who they're going after, it kind of like it stops the truck in the mud sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Do you find that when you're talking about your not so good client, does that correlate strongly with lack of clarity, and how are you kind of dealing with that problem?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, this is when you're first starting up. I mean, we're 2 years in now. There was a period where we were saying yes to anybody that came in. Like we're like, yes, let's do it. Do you do that? I'm thinking to myself, no, but yes, we do that. We'll figure it out on the fly, right? So we were saying that. We're at the point now where we don't necessarily, there's definitely times when we sign up a client that I'm like, we'll see how this one goes. Like where it's not like, who is your ideal client? Like this is it. And then it's somebody over here. So for us, like the clarity component to it is it's all for me. It's up here because I'm the seller for the company. So I need to keep all of this stuff in mind as I'm having these conversations with prospects that potentially want to work with us. Like, for example, we signed up a client a few months ago, I would say probably about 5-6 months ago. And he said to us on the call, nice guy, like good business. He said to us on the call, I want to test this out for 2 months and see if I can get any leads from it. That is a massive red flag for us because what we're doing, it's not going to create leads for you in 2 to 3 months. Like it may not create leads for you in 6 months because we're not tracking everything unless we have a lead magnet that we are posting that we can track traffic back from LinkedIn. You know, we're putting, we can tag it and put it back. We don't know. There's a lot of small like leading indicators that we look for and we want to see and we want to hear about, but I should have said no to that. I should have pushed back on that, especially the fact we have a 3-month minimum and then it's month to month after that. But I went forward with it. And sure, I'm like, we'll prove to him that we can figure this out. Like, he's going to love working with us. He's going to love working with my team. And sure enough, like 2 months comes around and he pulls the card out and I'm just like, yeah. And we ended the relationship in 2 months. And I knew I should have never said yes to that. So it is up to me a lot to go throughout through the process. But, you know, every once in a while, as a small business, you still are going to say yes to things you probably shouldn't say yes to.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for that owner, that busy executive that's thinking about going in on content, what should they be planning for? You know, how are they measuring ROI? What does that kind of ramp up look like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And it all depends on what are the goals going into it. That's one of the things that we have to find out at the beginning. Like, if you want leads, if your goal is to get leads out of this, like, right, then I need to set the expectation that this is going to take likely at least 6 months. You may see some trickle in from this, but it's going to help out. One, if we have lead magnets that we can use and post, it's going to help with if you're doing ads as well. So we can do ads. That'll fast forward the process a little bit. But from a content strategy perspective, like, the goal is to just keep you top of mind. Like, people don't think about the content part, that it does keep you top of mind, not just to your buyers but to your network, to your referral partners, to other people, it helps your sales team. So we have CEOs that we work with that don't care about leads. Like, yeah, my job as the CEO of this company is to support my sales team. And if that means that I need to be active on a platform like LinkedIn and putting myself out there, then that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to support that sales team. I think that the people that understand that in 2025, LinkedIn is part of the buyer journey in the B2B world, the people that get that understand how important it is to keep their executives top of mind by putting out consistent, high quality content that helps the sales team, that fast forwards the process, the sales process. So there's a lot that again, we have to ask and fish out at the beginning of these relationships. But if people just want leads out of this, I always get a little bit weary, because that screams to me that it's desperation mode and they're not going to focus on the quality of the content.
Yeah, that makes sense. One question I have is, how much is format of the content a constraint, right? So for example, if you have a client and I'm making this up, they're going after like health tech brands, and the CEO's like, I'm kind of an introvert. I don't really want to be like interviewed on an audio visual podcast. Can we create whatever LinkedIn newsletter content instead? Are you saying like, yes, we can make that work with your personality? Or are you saying like, no, health tech, it has to be video, works so much better, you got to do video? Like, how do you deal with that?
So we have a few clients that don't do any video, and it's fine. The content that we're putting out for them is still good. I keep kicking this wire. Sorry. The content that we're putting out for them is good content. We are adding a little bit of personality to it. So it's not just like, graphic images of like their like business profile, or whatever. It's like they've got some personality added to it with GIFs or whatever. So that still plays and showcases personality. It's just tougher today. Like, being on video is so important. Like, I know everybody says, well, yeah, you can do AI videos now. I saw an AI video yesterday that somebody posted, and it was horseshit. It was so obviously AI. And it's like, okay, well, maybe someday it'll be there, but it's not there right now. So this is why video is so important. So I'll always push it and push for it. But if they say, no, we don't want to do AI or do want to do video, my partner, Kelly, does a good job of kind of trickling in little things throughout the process and saying like, hey, let's just try this one. Or because they're on video anyway when they do the interview. So maybe we'll cut up a clip and be like, hey, our video editor cut this clip up. Like, it's a really good clip. Like, here it is. Let me know what you think. We don't have to post it. Just wanted to kind of get a pulse check and see what your thoughts are on it. So we'll do that. We'll trickle some of that stuff in. And for clients that have been no video, like we've had a few that have said, yeah, that's actually pretty good. Let's go ahead and post it. So it's kind of a crawl, walk, run with some of those people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess at one point, so you're helping them create this content and get it out there. How often, at what point are you suggesting they, like, I don't know, start a podcast or start an interview series, whatever, create an award show for their niche? Like, at what point are they going to the next level, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So we love podcasts, obviously. So if a lot of our clients already were doing podcasts and they just they'll send us the raw file and we'll cut that up for content. So we love the idea of podcasts. one thing that we talk about at the beginning of the relationship is like we do interview style videos just like this, where you're asking questions, I'm answering them, we chop it up and we get content from that. We love it and we encourage our clients to bring other people to those calls, those 60-minute calls, even if they're only on for 15, 20 minutes of the call. Bring a client to the call, bring a friend to the call, bring somebody on your team that's a subject matter expert on this to the call. And you guys will talk back and forth. You'll rap a little bit and we can take that and we can chop that up. Right. So it's great to do just the podcast style where we get like, for me, it would just be me on the post, but switch it up every once in a while. And bring somebody else on or do the podcast. Always in favor of that. Like it just makes for better content at the end of the day.
Yeah. And are they getting to the point of like getting their clients or their prospects on these shows? Like at what point is it expanding out from just the stuff they're doing?
Yeah, well, they start, it's nobody ever starts by just jumping in first call and says, I'm going to bring our client in. They want to get a good feel for it, get comfortable with the process. And then Kelly will suggest to them after the first few sessions, like, hey, is there anybody else we want to invite on? Maybe a client that you have a good relationship with that could be a good testimonial video, a few posts that we could build around it. So as clients do that. It's just, we have to kind of nudge them sometimes to actually bring people on.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like we're having these conversations all day anyway, and having these lively conversations, and it's like it's different, yeah, something happens when you throw in the recorder, but it's not that much different,
No.
So
No, it's a different world that we live in too now. I mean, think about, the stat is the average B2B decision maker is 35 to 36 years old. Like, and that's the social media kind of generation, or at least the back end of it. And you look at the average age of people on LinkedIn, I think it's like 25 to 31. I'm going to butcher this. There's a stat. And then the age right below that is 18 to 24. So it is the generation of people that are on social media. So you're right. Like when you're talking and just having a recorded conversation, chop it up for content, put it out there. Like the buyers of tomorrow and starting to be today are on these social media channels. And this is part of their process. Love it or hate it, this is where they are. So you have to be here if you're in the B2B space. It makes too much sense. It's just people just need to get outside of their comfort zone.
yeah, and it's not a lot different than what used to happen, at a conference or trade show or speaking engagement. It's just more casual in its own way.
Yeah,
So
super.
Makes a lot of sense here. Anything I haven't asked you yet, or anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we hit on a lot of stuff. I mean, listen, we could probably talk for hours about this stuff. But no, I think we're good, man.
Awesome, man. And the last question is, what are you working on over the next few months? What are you excited about?
Yeah, so two things. One, we launched our partner program this year. Our partner program has already been a massive success for us, where we're giving away our services for referred clients. So Dan, somebody that's a CEO or founder or any exec, and you say, hey, you need to be more active on LinkedIn. I know I don't have the time. You should talk to Jared over at Outworks. They become a client. We then run you through our process and create a month's worth of content for you. And there's also a revenue share component to it. So the partner program's huge for us right now. That's honestly how we're bringing in most of our clients, is through that. So I'm not even doing kind of hand-to-hand combat, like going out and trying to find like end users. I'm building up that partner program as a priority right now for me. So that's one. Two, we have a new service that we are going to be launching here shortly. And it is, right now we're doing just these monthly interviews. We have some teams that we work with, marketing and growth teams, on behalf of their CEO that could do this internally. So we are going to be building out the content creation operating system, which is kind of like an I do, we do, you do model, where we are building the entire machine that we do for these companies, setting up the integrations, the technology, building out the educational tools that they need to run it, working with a coach, and then working with their CEO. So for 4 months, we onboard them. First month, we create content for them. Second month, we do it together. Third month, they do it. So then the handoff is very smooth after month 4, and they're running this process internally within their company on their own. And if they want to keep us on, then a retainer would kick in after that. But we think there's a really good opportunity for us to swim upstream to a larger, higher quality client with that.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense, and sounds like it's going well. Jared, this has been so much fun, and hoping you can get a chance to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you having me on, Dan.
Likewise.